I think it's fair to say that most of us who are keen gardeners will have at some point tried to grow dahlias in our garden. And initially, it was growing dahlias in the landscape of my cottage garden and also in pots and containers that made me fall in love with them. And then eventually going on to grow them as cut flowers, where I really began to appreciate how amazing they are. And like so many of us, have become quite addicted to wanting to grow as many different varieties as I possibly can fit in my space. And if you are interested in seeing the full video here of me making this ridiculously enormous bouquet featuring lots of different varieties of dahlia amongst other things, then I'll pop the link up in the corner of the screen for you. And as I've mentioned in a couple of my more recent videos, I was a little bit disappointed in the autumn to lift fewer dahlias than I had hoped of varieties that I'd really like to grow. So I'm putting a lot of faith in being able to take cuttings from those dahlias to replenish those varieties. But not being much of a gambler, I did mention that I'd also placed an order for some tubers. And these tubers are sort of varieties that I hope will complement those that I want to propagate. And let's be honest, the worst thing that could happen would be brilliant, which would be I'd manage to propagate lots of cuttings from the varieties I already love, and that all of the new tubers would go ahead and sprout and grow on well too. So my dahlia order has arrived. So I've got 9 varieties in here, 5 of each, that's 45 dahlias. How exciting. And all but one are new to me. Funnily enough, I had tried to order one of them before and got something completely different. One of them I have grown before and sadly no longer have. But as I say, the rest are all completely new varieties to me. So I may grow them and not like them. Now, we cannot guarantee that these dahlias are going to be what they say they are, but this company that I'm using for tubers is J. Parker's, and I ordered a large, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, I ordered a large volume of tubers from them before, and only one variety wasn't quite right, and luckily it wasn't all of the tubers that were wrong, it was sort of 2 or 3 of the 5 were wrong, and that's how I ended up with Golden Scepter, by the way. I had ordered a dahlia called Yellow Jill, which incidentally, Yellow Jill is the dahlia which is in here again, which I have grown previously. So I'm hoping I haven't got a whole load of Golden Scepter. Golden Scepter is a dahlia that produces tubers like you wouldn't believe. Every year I dig it up and it just goes absolutely crazy. And it is quite a nice yellow if you're looking for a yellow dahlia. But anyway, I'm really hoping I haven't got any Golden Scepter in here. I'm hoping that was just an unlucky year. But the rest of the dahlias, when I had that large order, were all correct. So I'm really crossing my fingers that J. Parker's have done another good job and that these are all going to be right. A company that I can really recommend for dahlias, where I've never had a dahlia that is wrong or incorrect, is Halls of Heddon. And that's my go-to company when I'm buying rooted cuttings. Right, so, well, let's just, actually, I think I might have grown this one before as well. To me, all of the white dahlias sort of look the same. So this dahlia is, let's have a look at the tubers, shall we? This is Snowflake. Let's see if I can see any eyes. No, can't see anything on these. But, you know, interestingly, that is a really small tuber again, which is sort of how I found my tubers this year. So I wonder if it was just sort of a not very good year for growing tubers, because these are pretty tiny really. Can't see any sign of any eyes on these at the moment. And then quite often when you're unpacking your dahlias, you'll have lots of fallen off parts of the tuber. Now most of these you'll just discard, but just check them, because if they've got a little bit of neck, it is possible that they may have an eye on them and they may grow. All of these are missing the vital component for growing, so these are just to be discarded. Yeah, so there you go. But anyway, so 5 of those of the snowflake. So snowflake is pretty much as you would expect really. It is a small white pom-pom dahlia, and I definitely grew a small white pom-pom dahlia last year, and I do wonder if it was snowflake. But this plant, and then this makes me think it probably was that one, is sort of an 80 centimetre height dahlia. So when I'm planting these, I just need to be careful not to get them smothered in by some of the 1 metre dahlias, because you know there's a good 20 centimetres different of height there, and I do think that I smothered some of the smaller dahlias a little bit just by not planting them in order. You know, really what I want to do is plant the shorter dahlias at one end and then have them gradually getting taller. So I really need to pay attention to that when I'm planting. Okay, what have we got next? So these are much larger. I'm hoping I'm not going to regret this, because it looks like a beautiful dahlia, but then I have read somewhere about it dropping petals, and one of the reasons that I choose the balls and the pom-poms for cutting is that they do tend to have a longer vase life. So I'm hoping that what I read isn't going to be too much of a problem. I'm hoping they're going to make a good cut flower. So this is Wizard of Oz. So these plants will be about the same height as the snowflake. These will also be about 80 centimetres high. These are a ball, a small ball, but a little bit larger than the pom-pom. And Wizard of Oz, it's a really nice pale pink, almost with touches of white in there as well. Should look really nice with sort of pastel-y colours. Hopefully some, you know, things like nigella and things like that. But again, these tubers, I'm starting to think that some of the tubers I discarded were probably all right, because I think some of the ones I didn't think were any good were probably bigger than these. How does something so ugly become something so incredibly beautiful? I'm not really sure on the pronunciation of this one. Palmares, and this is, do you know, I think it's a ball. Could be a decorative, but it's an orange with sort of a quite purpley sort of centre to it. And again, the actual tubers, they're not very plump, are they? Going to be interesting to see how these grow on. And I mean, what I don't like is when there's damage to the tubers here, because of course damage is how infection gets into them and how you end up with things like gall. So again, the Palmares, I'm not really sure, is only a little bit taller than the two we've just looked at, 85 centimetres. So it seems I've got some more compact sort of size plants this year. Generally, I usually am growing dahlias that are a good metre. Okay, and then next is, now this is the one I tried to order last year. Oh, Last year, do you remember I ordered dahlias from Farmer Gracie? Never again. None of the dahlias were what I had ordered. Not one. Nothing like. And one of the dahlias I had ordered was Marble Ball. So I'm trying again, and this is hopefully Marble Ball. Now, as you'd imagine, it's a ball. And it's marbled, I suppose, with sort of purple and white. Now, I'm not really sure, I wouldn't normally grow a marbled coloured dahlia. But last year I grew Purple Pearl, which isn't marbled, it's sort of two-tone. And it looked really nice in the bouquets. And I'm thinking that Marble Ball is going to look really, really lovely as well. They're gradually getting taller. So the Marble Ball dahlias, they'll grow to about 90 centimetres. So it's interesting how I'm unpacking them and working them up by height. In some ways, there are benefits to not being huge. And one of the benefits for me is I don't ever try and start my dahlias outside in the ground. Now, a couple of reasons. One, I like to get a bit of a head start on my dahlias, and I definitely think that if you start them in pots before you plant them out, they're a little bit earlier to flower than the ones that are left in the ground or that you plant into the ground. But the second reason I like to start all of my dahlias in pots before I plant them out is because I do a little bit better at controlling slugs. If I put them into the garden too early, the slugs just eat the foliage off and they don't get a chance. Cool, this is a big heavy bag. Because these are smaller, they're going to fit into smaller pots, and therefore I should be able to start them a bit easier. So who's this? Now, I sort of bought the wrong dahlia here because I'd seen a dahlia on the Floret website called Peaches and Cream. And when I saw this one on J. Parker's, I didn't really read it properly and I thought it was the same dahlia. But it's actually, this is Peaches and Vanilla. And because I thought it was Peaches and Cream and it's actually Peaches and Vanilla, this dahlia is actually small, not the flower, but the plant. And I wouldn't usually grow anything this small in the cut flower patch. I may grow it in a container or in the cottage garden, because this dahlia is only actually 60 centimetres tall at full height. So I will have to be really careful where I plant this so it doesn't get smothered. And I mean, as the name would suggest, it's peaches and cream, and then peaches and vanilla. I think they are similar. Certainly they look similar in the picture as well. But I suspect that the peaches and cream is the more sought after and possibly the better variety. Now, I love a decorative dahlia, and some of them have quite good vase lives as well. Generally not as good as the balls or pom-poms. So if I'm putting these into gift bouquets, I'll only put, one, maybe three if it's a really large. Because then when that dahlia is over and is removed, you've still got plenty of other varieties in there. I wouldn't do a bouquet with just decorative dahlias in. I'd want some other longer lasting varieties in there as well. But I do think you do need to have a few water lilies or decoratives, especially if you're doing event work, just because you need the different shapes. And honestly, I'd get a little bit bored if I only had pom-pom and ball dahlias. Okay, so that's those ones. So yeah, my mistake. If any of you are growing actual peaches and cream, let me know what you think of it. Or have any of you grown the peaches and vanilla before, and is it any good, or is it a terrible mistake, or just a little error? Okay, and then we've got, now this is because there was a variety I grew last season. The name escapes me, but I'll pop it on the screen, and I'll try and find a picture for you. And it was this sort of really plummy, plummy rhubarby colour. Not red, not purple, like somewhere in between. And I think this is a really popular dahlia that lots of people grow. I think this is a pom-pom rather than a ball. Generally speaking, the pom-poms are just a little bit more tightly packed petal-wise, and the actual flower is a little bit smaller than the balls. The balls tend to be a little bit more open at the petals, and sometimes they've got sort of more of a flat top. But again, not a tall dahlia. I've definitely shrunk the height of my dahlias down this year. So 75 centimetres. Well, it's a bigger clump, but the actual tubers are not massive. But yeah, definitely bigger clumps. Oh, now this one looks really lovely. So this is Stolze von Berlin. And if I remember rightly, this is sort of a lilac-y pink. Again, I think it's a pom-pom rather than a ball. Lots of broken necks on this one. When you've got the broken necks like that, it's really not any good. This isn't going to provide any nutrients. There's 2 broken necks there, 3, 4. So this tube is really badly damaged, actually. I'm just trying to see how many. If I took all of those off, there's only a few little ones left. You can also see this one's almost started to dry out too much. When they start to shrivel, you don't want them to do that when you're storing them. That's usually a sign they've been stored a little bit too dry. So this is the yellow Jill, which I have grown before, and some of these look quite shriveled, actually. So yellow Jill is one of the only ones where I can put my own picture up if I've got a good enough picture. And I'm going to be honest, I love wine-eyed Jill. But I always found that wine-eyed Jill, as the season drew on, would sort of lose its eye. The dahlias, as the season moved on, would end up just being the outer colour, which was more of a pink. Whereas the yellow Jill, which is yellow, as the name would suggest, was sort of a maroon centre, tended to hold on to the maroon centre better. And I actually love a splash of yellow in a bouquet. And I mean, especially this year, because I'm going to be growing marigolds again and sunflowers, a bit of yellow. So yellow Jill is quite a tall one. It probably is 100 centimetres. That's what I generally grow. Interestingly, it was only the first bag, the snowflake, that actually had any completely fallen off sections. Right, and this is quite a big bag here. And this is, oh yeah, so this one looked quite good. This is Dahlia Little Robert, and the flowers are quite two-toned here, sort of a pinky burgundy colour with some white in there. So Little Robert, another pom-pom. I seem to have gone pom-pom mad this year, and I think that's perhaps why they're a bit shorter in height, because I do usually buy more of the balls. So I think this is another about 80 centimetre one. This is sort of two-toned, I suppose, magenta-y, pinky, almost, yeah, more pinky than red, I would say, but with some white. Some quite good clumps here. And I will not be sort of potting these up just yet. It's just not warm enough. And as you know, I made my hot bench for dahlias that I'd like to take cuttings from, because the idea is that I need those dahlias to sprout earlier to be able to take the cuttings, for the cuttings to then be able to root. So I don't need to worry about these just yet, but I will take them into my house, because I you know, it's still very cold. We're still having some frost, and I don't think they would freeze and rot because they're very dry. But I'm still not going to take that risk, and we'll keep them in the house for now. And then at some point in February, I will get them out and pop them all on and put them somewhere. I mean, I must admit, I have sprouted them in here before, just in the studio, because the greenhouse usually gets quite full of seeds. And not only that, it is generally more frost-free in here, but I don't think it's as warm. I don't think it gets as warm as the greenhouse. But you know me, I'll always, where there's a will, there's a way. I will find somewhere to sprout them. That we can be sure of. Thank you yet again for joining me this week. Just a quick video this week. I've been filming more bits and pieces today. I've done a little bit of seed sowing and a few things, and that will be in future videos. I'd love to know, I mean, don't try and persuade me to buy any more dahlias, because I'm already sort of scratching around to find extra space to put them. But go on, what variety do you think is your must-have dahlia? And I'm particularly interested in dahlias with good vase life. And I'm not a fan of the big dinner plates. They're great for event work, but what I really want is a good recommendation of dahlias which are great in bouquets. If you did like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to find out what these dahlias look like when they grow, then don't forget you can subscribe to my channel. And if you want to know when I've got new videos published, press the bell icon and it will keep you up to date on when I've put something online. Generally it's every week, but I'm not perfect. Occasionally I miss one. Anyway, thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.